Hey everybody, welcome back to another quick conversation with me, Jonathan Mitchell, and my father, Michael Mitchell. We are with Strategic Wealth Partners in Conway, Arkansas, and we want to talk about something that might be a little polarizing, for people that follow financial advice, and that is how there's three things that Dave Ramsey really sort of gets on a soapbox about, and they could be potentially harming people that follow that advice in their financial future. And so we want to talk about those three things really quick, and just to introduce those topics, the three things are: one, buying term insurance and investing the difference in mutual funds, things like that.
Yep.
Two would be, paying your house down aggressively and potentially paying your house off early. Early would be, faster than 30-year mortgage.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is why Dave Ramsey feels like permanent life insurance, or some people call it whole life insurance, is a scam or a ripoff. That's something that he really pushes out there heavily, right?
Yeah.
So those are the three things we're going to talk briefly about. But first, let's just kind of talk about who Dave Ramsey is. What do we? This is not going to be a completely hack and hate on Dave Ramsey conversation, because we do feel like he does some things well.
Yeah, he does.
Right.
Dave Ramsey's been around for a pretty good while, and he's got an extremely large, broad following, particularly in the Christian community. Mm-hmm. And he markets himself as a financial expert, and he goes into a lot of church settings, large church settings, and then he also has organizations, people within churches that promote the study of what he calls Financial Peace University. Mm-hmm. And he basically talks about what his perspective is on what people should do with regard to their finances, and a lot of people really do adhere to it and think honestly that he hung the moon. And in my opinion, and I've been around doing this for quite a few years, roughly 50 years, and I guess one of my biggest I think positive things that I would say about Dave Ramsey is he's really, really done a great job of teaching people how to eliminate debt. And that's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that.
Yeah, I mean, getting out of debt is debt can really hamper your ability to grow wealth. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't make a distinction between types of debt. For him, it's all debt.
Yeah.
And I would agree with the fact that consumer debt, which I've always labeled as black debt, mm-hmm. is a negative drag against people's financial growth, because you get no asset growth while you're doing debt service. You get no tax benefits from it. And a lot of things that people buy, they lose value, so they're depreciating in value. So you're paying typically high rates of interest that you're not getting any tax leverage from, or any asset recovery from when you're making payments.
Yeah, so those things would be, cars, boats.
Yeah, credit cards. Yeah, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But he also lumps what I consider to be positive debt, leverage debt, when it comes to real estate. And he advises people to pay off their houses as rapidly as possible, as aggressively as possible. And from a holistic, and I throw this word out to a lot of clients. I don't mean for it to sound like I'm trying to be overeducated about something, but it is. It's macroeconomic in perspective. Mm-hmm. But when you look at things from a macroeconomic perspective, and you're eliminating real estate debt rapidly and aggressively, you're losing a lot of economic value that could benefit you. Mm-hmm. When you're making payments against a mortgage principal aggressively, a lot of people don't take into consideration the concept of lost opportunity cost. Mm-hmm. So let's just say your house is appreciating at 2 or 3 or 4%, and you're paying extra money against the principal of your mortgage, and that extra money could have possibly been invested at in another place that, let's say, maybe would return 5, 6, or 7%, where you're losing those percentage points, over the period of time that you're paying off that debt, and it's lost to you forever.
Yeah.
And and you don't see, that's kind of like a phantom number.
Yeah.
You don't see those numbers, you don't think about those, but it is a real cost, a real drag against wealth development, economic growth. So Dave Ramsey does not make that distinction. And the other thing that I guess, and again, this is not meant to be just a hack against Dave Ramsey. I'm sure he means well, but people need to realize that Dave Ramsey is first and foremost a entertainer.
Yeah, or maybe an edutainer.
Edutainer, yeah. But what comes across to people is financial advice.
Yeah.
And he presents it well. He speaks well. It
kind of has very confidently.
It kind of has a sound of a rationale to it, and so people accept that as really good financial advice, and then they go act on it. And that'll kind of play through a lot of things that we're going to talk about today, because the thing about being an entertainer or a edutainer is, I like that phrase, by the way, is the fact that Dave Ramsey is not a certified financial advisor. He's not held to accountability of the information that he dispenses to people. People accept it because of very powerful marketing environment that he has created, and they accept it as absolute truth. But nobody holds him to accountability of what that advice might be impacting people with.
Yeah.
And if you're a true financial advisor, if you're licensed, if you're certified, if you're registered, you are held to that accountability.
Yeah.
And particularly if you're in the investment world, you're held to the accountability of being a fiduciary.
Yeah.
And that has a very high level of accountability that goes with it.
Yeah.
And Dave Ramsey does not have to adhere to that.
So explain real quick what fiduciary means.
Fiduciary is basically somebody who is giving advice and helping people to make choices, and he or she puts that advice ahead of their own personal needs, their own personal advancement. It's specifically supposed to be truthful. It's not supposed to be, embellished in any way. You can't have conflicts of interest it has got to be first and foremost for the benefit of the person who is receiving that advice.
Yeah.
And there is an accountability level that people are held to who are certified, registered, and licensed.
Yeah.
So Dave Ramsey escapes all of those things, and he puts this information out to people, and they accept it as absolute truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's a good point. So we kind of established who Dave Ramsey, what he really does. I think we can agree that he's very good at helping people get out of consumer debt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Nobody would argue with that.
Great
right?
job.
He's got some systems that, if followed well, I know people personally that have gone through his systems, gotten themselves out of debt, and that's awesome.
Right.
I think, to kind of wrap up the pay your house off early topic, paying your house down early, it's an emotional thing. Like, it feels good to think about, I'm not going to have to make that house payment ever again. Like, it's free and clear. Nobody can ever threaten to take it away from me, that kind of deal. But like you said, if you look at, the difference of the percentage points that you are giving up, over time, by doing that, it can be quite significant.
Yeah, it can, and that's just the lost opportunity cost aspect of it. Yeah. There's also another aspect that deals with the loss of tax benefits. As you're paying your house off more quickly, you're eliminating the principal quickly, and so therefore you're paying your tax benefit, because we get to write the interest off on our taxes. It's capped at a point, but you're still getting that as a tax write-off.
Yeah.
Another area is being able to leverage your mortgage against rising inflation rates. If you've gotten a house and you bought that house with cost of money that's lower, and now inflation has driven that cost of money higher, now you're buying a house on dollars that are much more economically feasible, that stretch further.
Yeah.
And so there's just lots of things that are working against you. I call them eroding factors, financial eroding factors, that just kind of intuitively doesn't come to top of mind when you're listening to somebody say, pay your house off as fast as possible.
Yeah.
What I would rather see people do is to leverage their house and taxes and on a 30-year mortgage, and then take the difference in what you're paying down on those principals and maybe put them in another account which is growing and accumulating dollars.
Yeah.
And you could actually be in a position that if the situation dictated you paying your house off all at once, whatever that might be, you would have the cash available to do that.
Yeah.
So it's not like you couldn't be completely debt-free whenever, but you get to control that and you get to choose that while hanging on to your tax benefits.
Yeah. You also get, you have better liquidity if you're, you set that money, if you want to pay extra on your house, great, do it. But put it over here in an account that you have access to, should an emergency creep up that you're not expecting.
Yeah.
And then you can go and pull that versus throwing it at your house. Like, you're never getting that money back.
It's not very liquid, that's for sure.
It's not very liquid.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll get it back when you sell or do whatever. But yeah, it's not very liquid.
That's correct.
That's the point.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So I think we explained that one pretty good. Let's talk about his big one, which is, buy term insurance and invest the difference.
Right.
Why is that potentially dangerous?
Yeah, these two are really hot button items for me.
I know. That's what I'm talking about.
I have to stay off my soapbox because I can get on it really, really quick, because I think this is the most damning piece of advice that Dave Ramsey puts out, and it hurts people so badly. When people, because the advice is you buy a cheap, an inexpensive term policy, and that frees up all this extra money that you are not paying against a permanent insurance policy, and you go put that in invest it in the market. And of course, he basically quotes that you can expect a 12% rate of return, and that's kind of a fallacy, because if you look at Dalbar Research, that's just an independent research firm out of New York, and they do these studies of the average rates of return over time of the average investor. And equity investors, people who are investing money in stocks and mutual funds and ETFs and things of that nature, their average rate of return over the last 25 to 30 years is not 12%. It's about 3.5%. And that's an independent research study that's come up with that information. Okay. If you look at day traders, and these are people who basically think they're the smartest people in the world and they know how to play the market and time the market, their average rate of return over the same time frame is about a minus 3%. Okay? Even institutional investors, people who are professional, pension funds and hedge funds, their average rate of return is probably 6 to 7%. Okay. It's not 12%.
Yeah. Do you know where he gets the 12% number?
Yeah, because if you just clinically look at the S&P 500, the broadest part of the domestic market in the United States, and you look over a 40-year period, the average return, if you had been invested and you never pull out and nothing ever happens and you don't have to sell out of your positions and all that kind of thing, which is where buy and hold strategies come from. The average rate of return is somewhere between 12 and 15%. But that's very clinical. That's not real world for most people, because you get people involved, and now you've got emotions involved, you got circumstances involved, and sometimes they just can't be clinical about the way they put their money in the market.
Yeah.
So they're in the market, and the market takes a big correction, and they get scared and they bail out and they take those losses.
Yeah.
So in reality, what you have is a term insurance policy, which is inexpensive for a time.
Yep.
And they've got money in the market, which may or may not be growing, but it's going up and down, and they're fighting the emotional battle and the roller coaster of that. And at some point, you find so many people, and I've seen this many times over my career, where people just, the whole thing of investing in the market didn't work out for them, and now all they're left is a term insurance policy, which at some point, insurance companies are very good at understanding the mortality game. they're going to raise the rates to keep that life insurance in place. You know, a lot of people think they can get to a place where they self-insure. They can self-insure. I've done so well in the market that I'm not going to need life insurance anymore. And a lot of times that just doesn't happen. And there's a whole lot of other issues.
There's a lot of ifs involved there.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs. So you find so many people that are just left with a term insurance policy, and now they're in their 50s and 60s, or maybe even beyond, and they still need a life insurance death benefit to protect their family, and they can't afford that.
Yeah, because term insurance is exactly what it sounds like. It's for a term.
It means it terminates.
Right? And so at some point, you're going to get to an age that's determined by the insurance company where you've got to reinsure, and they're going to look at like your age, your health now,
right?
And like you said, the mortality rate. Like they've got these figures. You know, they know about when you're going to die and like how much of a risk you are to insure.
Right.
And so those rates are going to go up to get the same amount of death benefit.
Right. And most people will bail out of those policies because they cannot continue to
They'll be too expensive.
And then you take and look at all of that accumulated outlay of premium and the lost opportunity cost that's associated with that, because you're getting no cash. You're getting no equity buildup.
You're getting
no
cash
cash
benefit from that term, and that
just
is
the death benefit only if you die.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. So you not only have that lost opportunity cost building, but here's the one that people always miss, and it's the legacy lost opportunity cost. You've got somebody that's, let's say, it got a $1 million policy or a $500,000 policy or even a $100,000 policy, and at some point they finally are forced to let it go. Take whatever the face amount of that death benefit is, which is no longer in existence, and apply a lost opportunity cost of money on the loss of that number, and extrapolate it over the life of their heirs.
Yeah. So pause. Time out. I don't want to pretend that everybody watching knows some of the like terms that we're using. So when you say the face amount,
it's a death benefit of the policy.
Okay.
So if it's a $100,000 policy, the death benefit's $100,000.
Okay.
So let's say they've lost $100,000. That's lost to their heirs, and that $100,000 is not getting a growth of a money rate. So let's say it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%, and that is extrapolated out over the lifetime of their heirs. That becomes a huge number. Goes into the multiple millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Dave Ramsey's advice of buy term and invest the difference is the most dangerous advice that he actually puts out.
Yeah, it really damages
does
what somebody's financial future could be.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And the thing is, it's not to say that term insurance is bad or it's not any good. It has a place.
It does.
In someone's financial model, but it's just a tool, and it's got a specific place that it works well in.
Right.
But it can't be the end all be all.
No.
Like that can't be
You
the
can't
only
build,
thing.
You can't build an entire financial strategy on term insurance.
So that helped. That's a perfect segue into the last point, which is, Dave Ramsey. I mean, he gets pretty passionate when he talks about permanent or whole life or universal life, and those are different. Those are actually different types of. I mean, they're under the same umbrella, but there's differences about them. There's nuances about those things. But he gets really passionate about talking to people about how permanent life insurance is a scam or it's a ripoff or whatever. And so let's talk about why.
Yeah. Well, the selling point to support his theory about whole life insurance or permanent life insurance, there's various types, is that the people that market them are basically, essentially crooks, people who are scamming people just to make a big commission. And that's kind of the way he's laid it out, is that's their motivation.
So you said the people that are marketing what?
Permanent life insurance plans, whole life policies.
The people he's talking about.
Yeah.
You're not talking about people in general in the industry, right?
Well, my understanding is that when Dave Ramsey talks about people who write whole life policies or permanent life insurance plans of any type, he questions their motive.
Okay.
And
so he's questioning their integrity, essentially.
He's questioning their integrity and their motive, and it's just driven by them being able to get a big commission. That's kind of what he basically, assumes.
Okay.
and promotes.
All right.
In reality, permanent life insurance, and I'm gonna lump a lot of different types of policies in, whole life, obviously, universal life insurance contracts, index universal life insurance contracts. They're permanent policies with a permanent death benefit that builds cash values in some fashion. Mm-hmm. And if people knew, if the advisors that they're working with really understand how to design those and utilize them in their planning process, their planning models, it can, and I've said this before, it can become the most powerful wealth accumulation tool and wealth utilization tool in existence.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with the fact, now I realize that there are some people that maybe don't have the right motivation for, recommending a certain type of policy. I'm not here to judge or question anybody's integrity. Mm-hmm. But for people who are professional, who really want to do the right thing by a client, getting them to obtain their human life value, their economic human life value in permanent life insurance, can, and properly structured, properly designed, it can become the most powerful wealth building, wealth utilization tool they'll ever encounter.
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about why that is. Why is it the most powerful?
Okay.
Or one of the most powerful tools?
Aside from just having a permanent death benefit, most people don't understand that the death benefit of a life insurance policy has more living benefits attached to it.
In a permanent life
in
insurance.
A permanent life insurance.
Yeah.
For example, you have a life insurance policy with a significant death benefit, and you've got other assets that you've accumulated, whether it be in real estate or retirement plans or savings plans or CDs or any other kind of accumulated asset. And you're in a place in your life where you need to use these assets. A lot of people, and the greatest fear people have when it comes to retirement planning, is running out of money too soon. Mm-hmm. So what they tend to do is they tend to be really, really cautious, if they can, about not eating up all of their nest egg, all of their accumulated retirement dollars, okay?
Yeah.
Another reason they don't want to run out of that is they want to leave something to their heirs. So they try to minimize as much as they can what they take out of these other accumulated assets. Mm-hmm. If you had permanent death benefits in place that you knew were going to replace your other assets, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So let's just say for a moment you've got $1 million of other assets you've accumulated, you should have at least $1 million of permanent death benefit in your planning model. That's a 1-to-1 replacement ratio. Then what can happen is you now are free to use all of these accumulated assets for your retirement picture while you are alive. These are living benefits. And the death benefit of a life insurance policy gives you a financial permission, I like to call it a financial coupon, the financial permission to use those assets during your lifetime, knowing that you've taken care of your heirs. That's just the death benefit side of it. So there's a lot of living benefits related to the death benefit of a permanent life insurance plan.
Yeah. And just to put it in very simple and like kind of layman's terms is, and what you're talking about is, those permanent life insurance contracts grow cash value inside the life insurance policy. So that is an asset, like a real growing asset that is yours.
Correct.
Nobody's going to take it away from you.
Right.
It's yours. And you can actually make policy loans against that cash that's growing in there at a very favorable, tax rate or interest rate.
Right.
Versus going to a bank.
Yeah.
And getting a loan or something like that.
That's absolutely another use for it.
Yeah.
But by virtue of having the death benefit, and we'll take the cash value aside for a moment. By virtue of having that death benefit, that assures you that you can make choices with your other assets that you might not make if you didn't have that permanent death benefit. Because you're now free to use those assets during your lifetime. That's the living benefits aspect of what I'm talking about, knowing that you're not going to be disinheriting your heirs in the process.
Yeah.
Now, beyond that, yes, permanent life insurance policies also have an equity growth component to it, namely cash values, that build up into the policies, and that gives you another source of assets that you can use in retirement on a tax-favored basis. And from an interest rate and a loan basis and a debt management basis, it's very easy to utilize those assets as opposed to maybe going and borrowing money for things that just create more debt for you.
Yeah.
So those are the two really major economic values that are kind of built into permanent life insurance plans that Dave Ramsey doesn't talk about.
Yeah, but they're so powerful.
Very powerful.
Awesome. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I think we packed a lot.
We did.
Of educational value into that video right there. And, just to sort of like answer, one more question that I know a lot of people probably have when talking about permanent life insurance is, but it's so expensive. It's, I don't know that I can afford it. That's why people really gravitate towards term.
Yeah.
But something that this firm, Strategic Wealth Partners, is very good at, we're very good at this, is looking at your financial model, your financial life. We like to call it the financial junk drawer, because there's a lot of like inefficient duplication, junk that people forget about in their financial life. We're very good at going and looking into your financial picture and actually finding that money that you're likely already sending out and spending. We're good at finding it, repositioning it into a more efficient position, therefore freeing up cash that you can actually go and put into a permanent life contract and start really building, wealth.
Right.
Really building something amazing. So if you're interested in learning more about that, like I said, we just dropped a whole lot of educational value on you right there. But this is stuff that we do every day with clients when we sit down with them. Is this kind of we have these kind of conversations.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we want our clients to understand, like really understand, or they could go and tell somebody else, what we're doing. We want our clients to understand that kind of thing, and so these are the kind of things that we do every day. And we'd love to talk to you about it if you want to know more. So if you do want to know more, go to our website. It's theswp.com, and you can fill out a contact form there, or reach out to us, here on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching this, and we'd be glad to connect with you.
Absolutely.
It's a good combo.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks. Bye, everybody.